Start the recording. Okay. Shapiro Prager. Okay. So everybody on the Zoom meeting, I just want to let you know you are welcome to interject at any time, but just know that when you do talk, it projects through the speakers throughout the room. So don't say anything that you might regret, and the meeting is being recorded. Okay, so let's get started. Hello, everybody. My name is Julie Houtman. I think I've met all of you guys before. Yeah, I think so. Okay. First order of business, I do have some good news. So I told you guys the very first unofficial meeting that we had that because of the new rules that ASU was implementing about our organization meetings, that I had reached out to FIRE and they took interest in our case. So every single call that I had with ASU, every single email that I got, I sent to them and they went through everything and they determined that ASU is being unconstitutional with some of their rules, specifically the contact tracing. They want us to use an app to check everybody in the room. And if, let's say I get sick, then all of you guys would get quarantined. I tried doing that today, but I can't figure out the app. So we weren't able to do that, but we did take attendance. And then they also said that a faculty advisor needs to be in the room, and FIRE determined that that was unconstitutional as well. They sent a letter this morning. We don't know when or if ASU will respond. Legal action might be taken, but that's completely up to FIRE. So it should be interesting. As this develops, I'll let you guys know what's happening. Hey, how's it going? And then if you guys want to get involved outside of regular crew meetings, we do have a Back the Blue rally this Thursday. Me, Rick, and Matthew went to this 2 weeks ago, and it was a lot of fun. If you go to the one on Warner and Gilbert, it's officially 5 to 7, but we left at like 8:30. There is Antifa, Black Lives Matter there, so it's a little interesting. But the police are also there, and they make sure that Antifa stays far away from us. So I wouldn't say it's a safety concern. Do be careful because ASU has already suspended like 5 students for not wearing masks off campus. So I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I go wearing a mask because I don't want to get suspended. And let us know if you want to carpool, because I think me and Rick will be going this Thursday, possibly Matthew. And now we have our speaker, Dan Schultz.
Hey, Julie, real fast. This is Charlie, the faculty advisor.
Yeah.
I'm not there because during the class at the Mercado, and so I don't know if I want to get sicker or if
Okay.
what the situation is. So
you were kind of cutting out. So you said that you couldn't make it today because you're not feeling well?
Yeah, I had some. I walked over to the Mercado and I got a bunch of leg cramps. It could be because I'm fat, or because I'm coming down with something. I don't know. But
okay, well,
I just wanted to I just wanted to let people know that I would be there if it wasn't for the not feeling well. So
yeah,
I
no problem.
apologize.
I mean, better to be safe and sorry than get everybody sick. All right, here, I'll give you the microphone. Oh. Is there...
I don't know why there's audio on it. Can you just turn the audio off? I did a narrated one. I wonder if I saved the wrong one. Can you just scroll down on the bar? Yeah, this is the one I want. But just turn the sound off.
Okay, I think I did.
And then, can you advance the slides for me, or do you have a?
I have a clicker.
I think I used that once before. Okay. Yeah. Hi. My name's Dan Schultz, and
I was asked to come and speak tonight about a couple of things. One is, how many of you in here are precinct committeemen? Okay, good. Who knows what a precinct committeeman is? Yes, you do? Okay. Well, what I wanted to do is I wanted to tell you some stuff that, since you don't know what a precinct committeeman is, you probably never had a civics class in grade school, like I did in 7th grade back in Wisconsin, way back in the, would have been the late 60s, believe it or not. And so now, are these advancing? They are. Yeah. I don't want them to advance. I wonder if I can pause it. Yeah, because it's for some reason this got saved as a yeah, let's see. So can you just watch the slides for me? And let me see, can I advance or not? Yeah, okay. All right, I'll just try to deal with it. So anyways, yeah, that would, could you do it for me? If I just tell you to go backwards and forwards, thanks. Anyways, I got taught all this stuff that I'm going to talk to you about tonight, and then I'm going to try to give you a real world example as to why it's important. There's lots of reasons it's important, but you know, our Republican Party is at war with itself, and I'm going to show you that in some of these slides. So I put this thing together, this initial presentation. I was asked to go speak at a conference in DC, and then I ended up not going. So I morphed it into the one that we're going to look at tonight. But basically what I was going to tell those people back in 2018, and this was after the 2018 election, that, you know, you got to stop talking about issues and all trying to be media stars, and you got to learn basic American civics and how the parties work and get involved and take over the Republican Party. So that's what this is. I'm going to show you. So the next slide, please. So Trump could do this. He should have been doing this the last 3.5 years. He's got all sorts of resources. So the best resource is candidate Trump. Candidate Trump should be telling you what I'm telling you. Okay. And then there's this thing called GOP Data Center. It's a piece of software that allows you to sort all the voters in a given voting precinct by how many times they've voted in the last 4 or 8 elections, whether you got any other data on them. You'll have their phone number, if they gave the state a number or the party a number, their address, etc. He's got snail mail. I'm going to show you some examples of that, but I brought along some of the mail I get from the Trump campaign and the RNC, et cetera. And they're not using it to recruit precinct committeemen to take over the party. Then he's got the campaign emails. If you ever sent online money to the Trump campaign, you're getting emails from them. And if you gave them your cell phone number, you're going to get text messages from them. And then of course they use social media. So you can go to the next slide, please. So this is a graphic. Down here at the bottom is the top of the Republican Party, the National Committee of the Republican National Committee. The party always, and most organizations always put the top people on the top, and the members of the organization down on the bottom. But really, in reality, organizationally, the people who control everything are at the top. There's about 400,000 of these precinct committeeman slots, voting member slots of the party that they don't want you to know about. But about 200,000 are vacant. So at the grassroots level, at the precinct level, there's a huge power vacuum. So what happens is, when there's a split like there is now, about 100,000 of these slots, about half of, or I'm sorry, a quarter of the whole and a half of the total number occupied right now are, I call them others. They're not conservative Republicans. Half of them are conservative Republicans. And what happens then, at the local committee level, when you elect the chairman of the committee, and that's the person with the most power in the of the officers, you end up with oh, can you go back again? That's okay. Sorry about this. So what you end up is half of the committees will have a conservative and half won't. And same thing with the county committees, the state committees, and then the national committee. At the state committee level, there's 3 people from each state, and the states include the 5 territories and DC, 168 total members of the national committee, and they're at war with one another. Half of them, actually a lot fewer than half, are conservative Trump supporters, and the rest of them, they're all rhinos, you know, Republicans in name only. They're Democrats masquerading as Republicans. Okay, the next slide. So what happens is if you fill up the power gap, you get if you can find 200,000 conservatives like you guys to fill the vacancies, then everything changes. Then all the local committees will have red chairs. The county committees will all have conservative chairmen. The state committees, all conservative officers, including those 3 members that are on the RNC. That's the chairman, the national committeeman, and the national committeewoman, because the precinct committeemen elect all of these people. And when you have a half-strength party that's split the way it is right now, warring with one another, you end up with a half-strength party that's ideologically split. So the art of the precinct, that's a play on, you know, Donald Trump's the art of the deal. So what I'm going to tell you how you can easily help make America great again where you live by Trumplifying the party, by becoming part of it. And the key thing is you've got to get every precinct committeeman slot in the party filled by a Trump supporter. And if President Trump had been doing this the last 3.5 years, like at his rallies, telling people, hey, you know, cool people, raise your hand if you're a precinct committeeman. I'm a precinct, you know, very few hands would go up. These are the people who are really important because they elect everybody. I want you to become a precinct committeeman, but he didn't do that. So, who would you target? Who should he have targeted? He should have targeted, like I have in my precinct, 45 to 65-year-old perfect voters. They always vote, 75% or better in the last 4 to 8 elections. And then you explain to them how easy it is to help get out the vote with just 3 hours of amount of work in the primary and the general. That's what I do. And then you provide them with the contact information to get in touch with their legislative district chairman or county chairman or their precinct captain. And if he had sent this out using all those resources I said before, text messages, social media, snail mail, he could have filled all the slots. And down here on the bottom, I did it in my precinct with a postcard, and it cost me $25. I did the mailer to that target group, and I recruited 2 people. Okay, my precinct has a quota of 11 precinct committeemen. I'll explain that a little bit later, what that means. And I got 2 people who responded, and they became precinct committeemen, and then they in turn knew people, and they recruited precinct committeemen. So there's 1,489 precincts in the state. Can you go back one more? Thanks. And so if in every precinct 2 had been recruited, we would have gotten 2,976 more precinct committeemen. Well, right now in the party, there's about 13,000 of these slots in Arizona, and only about 4,000 are filled. So we're going into this most important election in our lifetimes with a party that's at about 1/3 strength for getting out the vote. And that's a recipe for disaster. Not to mention everything else about who runs the party. Okay, so you can go to the next slide, please. Thanks. So this, when I moved here from California back in around 2000, I thought that the Republican Party was full. They didn't need me. Everything was great. This is Goldwater country. That was my perception. And then I went to my first meeting, and this is what I found. In reality, it was less than half full. half my legislative district at that time had a quota of 160 precinct committeeman slots. Only 40 were filled and only 20 were coming to the meeting. And that's just the way it was back then. So next slide, please. So this is what it should be like at these meetings. This is just a, I would like to see a line out the door, people wanting to get in and find out what the hell this Republican Party is about and how do I become part of it and how do I change it. So this is where conservatives should be lined up outside these meetings that happen once a month. Okay. So this is a slide. I thought I was going to take this out. No, that's right. I left it in there. Okay. So basically what happens right now is we've got this, all this, I call it the wall of political indifference. The people who are clued into politics like we are, they're listening to all this stuff on Facebook and talk radio and Fox News, around it goes. But in the general election, typically 40% are not paying attention at all. And they don't pay attention to any of that. And the only way you can get those people to vote is by a person-to-person contact. And the best way to do that is in your individual precinct, going door to door, or by phone to the lower information, lower propensity voters. Okay, next slide, please. So I wrote a book about this back in 2017 on Kindle direct publishing, I guess it's called. So there's an ebook version. It's on Amazon. How to get in the real catchy title. How to get into the real ball game of politics where you live to help President Donald J. Trump make America great again. And the bottom line, how to do that is become a precinct committeeman. That's the first step. So this is a power chart, and I've got hard copies for this. It's a little bit busy, but basically what it basically tells you is there's one precinct committeeman slot for every 125 Republican voters in a voting precinct. And then what do? Well, they elect the state committeeman, they elect state committeeman. There's one state committeeman for every 3 precinct committeemen. The state committeemen elect the AZ GOP chairman. Kelly Ward got elected by state committeemen, elected by elected precinct committeemen. They also elect in the presidential election year this year at legislative district committee meetings, their caucus meetings. We had those in March. The delegates to the state convention were elected by only precinct committeemen. You could go, any Republican could go there and want to become one and run, but only the precinct committeemen voted. So the precinct committeemen have, like I said, all of the power. And then at that state convention, the state convention delegates elected by the precinct committeemen elect the national committeeman and the national committee woman. They serve a 4-year term on the RNC. So that's Tyler Boyer and Lori Klein Corbin. So really powerful position. So like I said, I've got that chart here. So again, just to recap, precinct committeemen directly elect the legislative district committee officers and the county committee officers, the most important of which are the chairman. They directly elect the state committeemen, who elect the chairman of the party to a 2-year term on the RNC. Presidential elect the national committeeman and national committee woman through the delegates that they've elected. In other words, precinct committeemen, they are the party. And if you're just a registered voter, you have you're a donor basically. You're hopefully a donor because you don't have any power in the party itself. And the RNC and the establishment Republicans within the party right now, they hope you guys never figure this out. They'll never tell you any of this. Okay, so next slide. So again, key, fill every vacant precinct committeeman slot with a Trump supporter. And if this is what President Trump could have done by letter, email, text messages, and at the rallies, he could be doing this, but he's not doing it for some reason. Okay, next slide. So now let's get to, and let me just show you, and if this advances, just take it back. Let me just show you physically how simple it is to become a precinct committeeman, an elected precinct committeeman. you have to get one of these forms. You have to get 10 signatures on it. One of them can be yours. And the party will give you a walking sheet for your precinct where you can go door to door and get these signatures. And if you're in a precinct where there's already a bunch of precinct committeemen, they'll sign for you. They'll help you. You got to go to the meeting though and say, I want to become a precinct committeeman. Now it's too late to do that now because this election happened in the August primary. But that's it. It doesn't have to be notarized. Then you have to fill out this form. This is a declaration of candidacy saying, I live in the precinct, I'm a registered Republican, I want to be on the ballot. Used to have to be notarized, which was just an extra step. The legislature did away with that requirement, thankfully, and then you just have to sign it. Then you turn these into the elections department, and then you'll get on the ballot. And they'll send you a confirmation in the mail. You're going to be on the ballot. 95, maybe 98% of the precinct committeeman elections never have a ballot produced because almost all precinct committeemen will run unopposed. 25% of our precincts don't have any Republican precinct committeemen. And right now, after the primary election, only here in Maricopa County, only 36% of the slots got filled. And down in Pima County, only 23% got filled. In Cochise County, the Trump supporters who were precinct committeemen committed last fall, we're going to fill every slot. And they did it. And they've got 284 slots and all 284 got filled. After the primary election and starting next January, after the organizational meeting of the state meeting comes and goes, you can get appointed to a vacancy by filling out a form like this in Maricopa County. Some counties, there is no form. You just call or get in touch with the county chair and say, hey, there's a vacancy in my precinct. I want to become a precinct committeeman. And they'll get you appointed to a vacancy, but they don't have to. But the statute gives all discretion for that to the county chairman. And if the county chairman, if the legislative district chairman, like let's say you're in Maricopa County, says, yeah, I'll sign your paperwork, I'll sign this form. And this is one of the signature for the legislative district chairman. If the county chairman were to say, I'm not going to appoint anybody, they don't have to, but usually they will. But in the past, there's been some problems with that. So I want to give you now another real world example as to why this is important. And this happened on September 1, about a week before Jeff Flake, who is a Republican, supposedly, he decided that he was going to support the other guy, not Republican. Okay, so next slide. Well, let's say that Jeff Flake was a member of the RNC. There are rules of the Republican Party. These are the bylaws of the RNC. Now, one of the rules, next slide, please, is rule number 4, vacancies of members and officers. So next slide, please. Rule number 4 says in paragraph B, the Republican National Committee shall have the power to declare vacant the seat of any member who refuses to support the Republican nominee for President of the United States or Vice President of the United States. Well, if Jeff Flake was a member of the RNC, and thank goodness he is not, what he did would be cause to have him expelled from the RNC and be replaced. So why do you think there's a rule like this? It's because, once we get past the primary, now the goal of all Republicans is to elect the nominee of the party. Well, Jeff Flake doesn't think so. And so he's run afoul of this rule, the spirit of it. So next slide, please. And then we've got Maricopa County Republican Committee bylaws. I'll show them to you. I'll show you what these, a little you have to learn about how the party runs if you become a precinct committeeman. Okay, these are the total rules of the Republican Party right now. It's mostly white space. There's only a few rules that pertain to us down here at the local level, but that one I showed you is a real important one. Then we have state committee bylaws. Just a few pages. There's not much to it. Okay. Then we've got the Maricopa County Republican Committee bylaws, and not much there. And then down at the legislative district committee level, there's district committee bylaws. Not a whole lot to read, and anybody with a 5th grade education can understand it all. You don't have to be a lawyer. It's pretty simple stuff. Okay, so next slide, please. So we have a rule similar to the national rule down here at the county level at Maricopa County. No member of the MCRC, Maricopa County Republican Committee, shall lend an endorsement to a non-Republican candidate in any election that has a Republican candidate on the ballot. Should an MCRC member endorse a non-Republican, like Jeff Flake did, that MCRC member will lose his voting privileges, including voting by proxy, for the rest of the term, provided you gave notice to him or her of that, and they had an opportunity at the next meeting of the county committee to defend themselves. And we've had this happen to people in the past. I don't know if Jeff Flake is a precinct committeeman. I didn't look him up in the database. But if he is one, then he's subject to this. And any member, any other precinct committeeman in the county could ask the executive committee of the county committee to jettison him from the party. So next slide, please. So here's the resolution. I'll just go through it real quick, the highlighted part. So Jeff Flake, in opposition to the principles of our republic and of the Republican Party, decided to be a de facto spokesman for the Democratic Party. He purports to speak as a conservative. Also, an apparent majority of Arizona residents, shown by his 18% approval rating. He's directly opposed to the Republican Party. Primary season is now over. Flake has endorsed the Democratic nominee for president. Therefore, be it resolved, down here at the bottom, further resolved, the MCRC hereby encourages you, former Senator Flake, to take the next important step and join a party that is more in line with your endorsements, your actions, and your votes, the Democratic Party. And then attached to this was a voter registration form. And so that's what the executive committee of the Maricopa County Republican Party, all of those people were elected by precinct committeemen. There's 10 officers. They were elected directly by the elected precinct committeemen back in 2018. And then the 20 legislative district chairs of the 20 legislative districts here in our county, they're members. And so it went to a vote. And how did the vote go? Next slide. Let's go back one. Just leave that other one there. How did the vote go? It barely passed. It only won 15-12. 2 of the 30 members weren't there, and they didn't send up somebody with their proxy to vote, which they could have. And then Chairwoman Ray Chornenke, she abstained from the vote. She didn't need to vote, and I think that was a wise thing for her to do. But 15 people, they're out of, I want to say there's something like, I'm probably going to be way off on this, but right around 1 million Republicans here in Maricopa County. And I know there's currently we have about 3,500 precinct committeemen. We could, here in Maricopa County, we could have twice that number. But only 15 people made this happen. And Joe Neglia is the guy who wrote it and then made the motion to have it voted on at the meeting. That's why it's important. If there were more conservatives in our party, we'd have more of this. And actually we wouldn't even need to be doing this stuff, because if conservatives were in a huge majority in our party, we'd have a much better voice of our party, and people would see that Republicans actually really embrace their party platform and stand for what it all means. So now, next slide, please. So here's some basic American civics questions that every American needs to ask themselves. You know, do you know the name of your voting precinct? Mine's Corbell. So how many precinct committeeman slots are there for your precinct? You can look this stuff up online. Here in Maricopa County, it's real easy. My precinct has a quota of 11, 10 of the slots are filled. We almost had a contested election, but 2 of the people that we recruited were like MAGA supporters, and then they just decided at the end, even though we got them their signatures to get on the ballot, I don't really want to do this after all, and they withdrew. So we got 10 of 11 slots. So what's the name of the precinct committeeman or committeemen in your precinct? You should get to know them. You can find out who they are. It's all online. I can show you where to go find that. When's the last time you spent about 2 hours and attend your monthly legislative district committee meeting? You ought to go do it. See how the sausage is made. It's pretty interesting. And like I tell people, once you become a precinct committeeman and get involved in the Republican Party, you're going to meet some really interesting people, and you know, all types. And then, have you ever spent so far in your life 3 to 4 hours in a primary election helping to get out the vote in your precinct, in your voting precinct? Or have you ever been a poll worker or a poll watcher? That's another thing that you can do. And we're always begging for people to do that. Ask yourself this question. In the last presidential election, you guys, some of you probably weren't old enough to vote then, but this is what I would ask any American. How many voters do you believe you actually caused to go vote who otherwise wouldn't have? And then other than just cutting a check for some groups, what have you concretely done to get greater numbers of conservative Americans to the ballot box? We all need to be doing this sort of stuff, and the best way to start doing it is in the party itself, because then you get all the tools of the party. Okay, next slide. If any political activist, so-called political activist, says, hey, I want you to do this or I want you to do that, ask them, are you a precinct committeeman? How many years have you been a precinct committeeman? And how many fellow Republicans have you recruited to become a precinct committeeman? I was trying to get Steve Bannon to embrace this, okay? I told him, I gave him a PC button. And I told him, now from here on out, this was back in like September of 2017, after I wrote my book. And he asked me to help him, to help Kelly Ward running for the Senate then. I said, Bannon, you need to be asking all these people, you go around the country, you meet go speak to all these groups, everybody that you run into, ask them, are you a precinct committeeman? And see what kind of a response you get. And most of them would probably say, what's a precinct committeeman? You know, but they're activists. The best way to become an activist is to get involved in the party. There's a libertarian, I can never remember his name, David something or other, and I don't know where he is now, but way back in 2012, he was active in the party, and he had this saying that if you haven't had a clipboard in your hand with a nomination petition for either a candidate or a ballot initiative, if you haven't done that in the last election, because that's what it's all about. It's getting candidates and things on the ballot for the people to vote on. Okay, next slide. So this is where we are right now as a party. That's sort of self-explanatory. That's where we are, and it doesn't have to be that way. This is where we need to be. That's what we need. Okay. And if we do what I've just laid out for all of you, that's what we'll have. The the conservatives will be in charge, and these other people, the others that I talked about, some call them Republicans in name only, they'll be in the a position that is maybe not one they'd want to be in, because it's all about numbers, majority rules, fundamental thing of politics. Next slide. So I think this is the last slide. Can you go forward one more? Yeah, it's last slide. Okay, so good. I couldn't remember that I pulled this down at the bottom. So if you want to get my book, it's on Amazon. I'm not here to sell books, but it I priced it at like $9.99, and if you're Amazon Prime, I think you get the electronic version for free. It's part of your Prime. I made it as short as possible, and I should have priced it at $99.99. I think, because I believe it's that valuable, because it teaches you everything you need to know to get involved in the party. I have a site, the precinctproject.wordpress.com. I've just compiled everything that I've been able to find on the internet for every state in the union about how to become a precinct committeeman. If there's instructions online, it's there. I found it and put it there. We have me, Kimber Hattendorf, and Barbara Medell, and some other conservatives put together rightlanenetwork.com, and at it there's what's called a PC portal. Got all sorts of stuff about the importance of being a precinct committeeman, how to go door to door. So there's some tutorial videos that I put together years ago. And then also, there's a link to, at the Maricopa County Republican Committee website, there's a link to another good site for Maricopa County, bapc.com. And Lisa Gray put that together, Lisa Gray. And it's very good. It's got everything, all the forms you need, you can download. And then I wrote a shorter version of this book, just an ebook, and submitted it to Richard Viguerie. He was running a Liberty Prize contest, and he put me in his book, and I got half of the $10,000 prize. I did. I just haven't gotten the money. I don't know where it went. It never got to me. And then that's my contact information. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, good. I'm glad you're asking a question, because I've already got an answer prepared for you. Well, sure. Let's think about that for a second. You saw the Flake resolution, right? So you guys are Republicans? Yeah. And okay, all right, no problem. So if you're a registered Republican and you're professing do not vote for who Donald Trump says you should support, Martha McSally, now in the general election, you're essentially doing the same thing that Jeff Flake is doing. You ought to think long and hard about that. Okay. Secondly, I sat down with Daniel McCarthy on August 30th of last year, and then 2 more times. And I gave him this strategy. I told him, and I did this with Kelly Ward 2 years earlier when she ran, and then ended up running against McSally. Flake dropped out and McSally came in. And I told her, and then I told Daniel, same thing. If you just run a typical advertising campaign, you're going to lose. You're going to lose big. Kelly Ward got 28% of the vote in 2018. Daniel got 24% this time, okay? Because he just ran an advertising campaign. I told him, if you want to win, do what, well, I didn't know they were going to do it down in Cochise County, but they did it. And I asked him, how did you do it? And I told him, this is what you need to do. It's August, from here on out to the end of the year. To become an appointed precinct committeeman, all you had to do was fill out that form. And down in Cochise County, there's no form. You just tell the county chairman, I want to become a precinct committeeman. There's a form down in Pima County. Most of the counties have a form, but not all. Every place you go, all of your supporters, you implore them, sign up, become a precinct committeeman. Then after and why? Because guess what you get to do? And you tell them, if you become an appointed precinct committeeman before the end of the year preceding the presidential election year, you get to go to that caucus meeting I mentioned and vote for who gets to become the delegates. If you fill up all the vacant slots in all the counties and then go to those March meetings, those caucus meetings, and all vote for each other, most of you are going to become convention delegates. Then guess what? You go to the convention, and which comes before the August primary, wearing your Demand Daniel stuff. And you'll look out into the audience and all of us, whoa, look what happened. Demand Daniel took over the party. He's filled up all the vacancies. And then you use all those new precinct committeemen. So after the end of the first of the year, then it becomes getting the signatures season, okay? You teach them how to do that, get their signatures, get on the ballot. And then that deadline's April 6th. Then after April 6th, you have until May 20th. If you blew this deadline or you didn't find enough supporters to fill all the vacancies this way, there's another form. I don't have a copy of it in every county. It's called a write-in declaration of candidacy. Doesn't have to be notarized. One piece of paper. I want to run for precinct committeeman as a write-in. That's what they did down in Cochise County. Before the end of the year, they recruited as many as they could through the appointment process. After the first of the year, they got as many as they could to get this done, and then they still had shortfalls. And then they reached out, and they were targeting Trump supporters. So they went to these Trump MAGA parties and come on, become a precinct committee. They explained it all. I told Daniel to do this. He didn't do it. Well, that was free advice. I asked him to hire me. He wanted to hire me. He just didn't want to pay me. So, that's what happened. Now, instead of rallying behind Trump's endorsed candidate, some of you are doing a Flake. It's going to come back to haunt you. It's much easier to take over an existing party because the structure's already there. Much easier. It's a numbers game. Starting from scratch, guess what you're going to have to do? First, you got to get about 35,000 signatures. If you make that hurdle, then when you have meetings, who's going to pay for the meeting room? Where are you going to meet? How are the people going to get to the meetings? Why not instead take all of your supporters and invade the Republican Party and take it over going forward? Much easier to do. So those are my thoughts. Yeah, sure. Anybody else? Yeah, Matt?
What do you say to those critics who say maybe it's too late to really start changing the party from within? Maybe it's time to make that.
What was that Ross Perot party, the Reform Party? What happened to the Reform Party? It doesn't exist anymore. Remember that guy Anderson a long time ago, back in Reagan era? I don't even remember the guy's first name. I don't even remember the name of the party. It's very, very difficult to do a third party. It's much easier to get like-minded people to insert yourselves into the party that is at half strength and there for the taking. You don't have to fill up all the precinct committees. Look, half of the precinct committeemen in the, but half aren't. But if you can get 10, 15, 20% more conservatives at every committee level, in every voting precinct, and do that, then when it comes time for the next round of elections to elect the chairs, the conservative will win every time. It's all about networking too. You got to network, you communicate. The party will never give the precinct committeeman an easy communications tool because they don't want the conservative precinct committeeman easily communicating with one another. So that's what, like at Right Lane Network, we have a forum capability. If you're, let's say that you're in legislative district 23, just pull that out of the hat, and you're a conservative. You can invite all of your fellow legislative district 23 precinct committeemen to come to rightlanenetwork.com. We'll host you for free. You can go in and set up a communications network and do all, now you don't have to rely on email. You log into a site, you control your username and password. You can change it anytime you want, and you can set up a chat room just for the LD23 conservatives. We don't let in known rhinos onto that platform. It's just for conservatives. So, you know, that's something that you guys could do. Anybody else? Oh yeah, sure.
So you were saying that at like Trump rallies, they don't really advertise for precinct committeemen. And I will say that me, Misha, and Rick were at the, granted, usual Trump rallies are hosted by Trump Victory, but this one was hosted by 20 Point Action. The students for Trump going back in June, and they had a table there, like right next to the line of people, and it was talking about how you can come to. So I think they have like a line there, so people are
Good, good. But they should have been doing this for the last 3.5 years, and they haven't been. And I don't know why. You'd have to ask Tyler Boyer and Charlie Kirk that, like, you know, point blank. Why didn't you do it? I don't understand. Look, I want to show you one more thing. So I went through my mail pile, and so these are, here's RNC mailer I got most recently, doing this backwards chronological order. Donald Trump campaign, fill out the survey, send in the money. Nobody's going to read that survey. Donald Trump, send in the money. Republican National Committee. Hey, this is to Daniel. Hey, wow, did you know that there's an election coming up? They don't even know I'm a precinct committeeman. You know, I've been on the county committee as a treasurer, as a member at large. They don't even know that. Here's a 2020 voter registration confirmation, a survey of 100,000 Christian Americans from Ralph Reed. He doesn't know I'm a precinct committeeman, but he wants me to fund this. We're raising $22.5 million to do something, you know. How many of your Faith and Freedom Coalition members, and he ran for president. He knows this stuff. I don't understand why they don't recruit their members to become PCs. Here's Martha McSally asking for money. Does she say, oh, half of the precinct committeeman slots in the state are vacant? No, because she's not interested in people becoming PCs. Here's your prompt reply and campaign gift are vital to our party's grassroots ground game. Precinct committeeman, this is from Donald Trump. It's not mentioned. One other thing, and there's more of them. So, I mean, it's always send money, send money, send money. The oldest one that I had was from Melania Trump, and it was, look, you got to give $45 immediately to the RNC or hell will freeze over or something, you know. Never give money to a political action committee either. If you're going to give money directly to a candidate, and then once you've met that limit, I think it's $2,300 for an individual candidate, then volunteer and help get out the vote and become a precinct committeeman. That's the way to really take over the party and help the candidates. But if you send it to a PAC, all they're going to do is spend it very wastefully on radio ads and TV ads. That the only people who see those radio ads and TV ads are the people who are going to vote anyways. What we need to do as precinct committeemen and campaign volunteers is target those like lower information, lower propensity voters who come, they don't vote, and you know who they are, and then you call them and you urge them to go vote. I've done it in my precinct for the last 10 years, and historically over we're always, of the 43 or 41 precincts in Legislative District 18, my precinct is always 1 or 2 in terms of the percentage of Republicans that turn out, because we contact the ones that need the extra little nudge. Okay, thanks. Oh, and then I've got some things up here that you can have. Some. This is my precinct committeeman recruitment flyer. It explains why you should become a PC. Here is that power chart with a narrative of it on the back. Take one of these citizens rule books. It's got the Declaration, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and a juror's handbook in it, and lots of information about the founders and framers. And then this is a one-page precinct committeeman fact sheet that tells you more about how important precinct committeeman is. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry, I turned it off. Sorry for the people in the Zoom. Okay, I'll repeat that. Dan came to my first semester at CRU, and I became a precinct committeeman then, and I got appointed. And then I've been a precinct committeeman now for 2 years. I just finished the election process. My precinct is really small, so I didn't even need to get 10 signatures. I only needed 6. So, and it's a lot of fun, and it's really good networking. And I don't know if this is the same for every LD, but my LD, whenever I come in, they're like, "Oh, young kids," and they eat you up. So I would definitely recommend becoming one. And that's it. Let me finish the recording.